Hey, April 29th. We're talking about Sweden again. And at this point, the WHO, who, quick history, went from completely endorsing the Chinese propaganda points and up until January 14th, I think, of 2020, had proclaimed publicly that the coronavirus did not have human-to-human transfer. Good job. Fast forward a couple months, and the WHO got spanked a bunch. The Trump administration spanked them quite a bit. I think even at this point, I'm not sure that they had withdrawn their funding yet, but they were definitely talking about it. And even the mainstream media outlets were kind of not given the WHO the pass that it normally would, because they just screwed up so much. And at this point, it was kind of out of left field. They came out and they said that Sweden was a model for the rest of the world. And essentially all this article was about, and all their declaration was about, was a simple fact that Sweden was one of the only countries and places, frankly, on the planet that didn't call an audible. You know, Sweden followed the pandemic playbook. We do understand that, right? Sweden didn't call an audible themselves. A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that Sweden just like went off the rails, went off the reservation, and went crazy. Those are the people that don't understand or won't admit that Sweden did demonstrably better than most other countries. But at this point, that really was all the WHO was doing. They were saying, look, Sweden followed the pandemic playbooks that we devised, and the WHO was involved in that. And the pandemic playbooks, if you remember, they were about, A, looking at history of pandemics, B, and taking that learning into account and, moving it forward. B, talking about mitigation tactics like masks and lockdown, saying don't do either, right, in the pandemic playbooks. And also the pandemic playbooks essentially said, look, keep things as normal as possible across society. Do not make major changes out of reactionary fear to these things. Keep things as close to normalcy as you can. Adjust when necessary, but pay attention not just to the pandemic or the pathogen or the epidemic or whatever it is, right? Pay attention to the other things that affect the health and well-being of your society. And that is the economy, that is your schools, that is your mental health, right? And that's the health of other things, cancer screenings, everything else that a lot of the other Western countries completely bungled. That's why the WHO did this. There was a lot of outrage about this. A lot of outrage. And this is where we saw once again this idea of, oh yeah, the WHO, yeah, they're wrong sometimes. And it was interesting for me and other members of Team Reality to post this and talk about this because specifically we had been very upset with the WHO for carrying the water of the Chinese government, so obviously. And that said, again, in the interest of honesty and consistency, when they're right, you have to acknowledge it. And they were right here. They were so right. Sweden was right. Yes, they were.